Within a forest, Itachi and Satomi walked together side by side, the two of them being aware of their surroundings as they were continuing on in their mission. This was during the time period, the 2 months in which the both of them would be on Earth, as they alternated every 2 months between doing missions on the planet before carrying out their expeditions in the various dimensions of the Otsutsuki. As the two of them walked together, Itachi could sense an agitation from his younger sister. "Satomi, what troubles you?" "It's nothing, Itachi. I can sense that you are very erratic. Something is on your mind. Is it about your son, Boruto?" "Well, you are as perceptive as ever, older brother." "I have to be, little sister." "He is fine now. The charges have been cleared and the ones responsible, they have been apprehended." "I understand, but that's my son, Itachi. They tried to come after my son." "I'm thankful that Naruto was there, along with you and everyone else. And I'm grateful that we arrived when we did. Otherwise, there's no telling what the Foundation could have done to the Leaf. But even still, even in his grave, it's as if Danzo still taunts us. And now, even the sins of his past look to harm those who I love the most. You've come a long way since then, Satomi. There was a time when you could have gone down the dark path, but you were able to overcome it. I know, but still, I can't help but fight the urge that grows inside of me. If something were to ever happen to Naruto, or God forbid my children, I don't know what I'd do. The only thing I know for sure is that I could never forgive the ones responsible." As the two of them continued to make their way, they would stop as they could tell that they were being trailed. Of course, they did not give off the illusion that they had been aware of their pursuer, and all the same they lured him into a false sense of security. When out of nowhere, an oddly shaped kunai would come flying towards them with a paper bomb. Both Itachi and Satomi would dodge it effortlessly as they turned back to the woods, Itachi's Sharingan at the ready, demanding that whoever was responsible make himself known. Just then, a young man in white hair and pale skin would appear before them. However, what was most shocking of all was his eyes, for his eyes had a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. "Greetings, brother, sister. And just who are you?" "I am Shin, Uchiha. And in the name of our master, you must die." Our scene now changes to Konoha. It was a bright and hopeful day as always. Naruto continued to do his duties as the Hokage, and his children continued on growing in their own careers as shinobi, at least for Boruto and his sister Sarada. Their youngest, Jiraiya, was still at daycare for the most part. However, on this day in particular, Sarada had been feeling a bit curious. You see, out of the 3 Uchiha Uzumaki children, each one had their own unique take when it came to their heritage. When it came to Boruto, Boruto loved the cool jutsu, the funner aspects of the Uchiha legacy. He would love to go around and look at the old Uchiha scrolls and try to figure out any new jutsu that he could learn. He was always fond of learning techniques from his uncle Itachi. As for Jiraiya, Jiraiya was still young. He was inquisitive to say the least, although he was in no real rush. But when it came to Sarada, her mind absorbed a lot of knowledge like a sponge. For Sarada, while she was always wanting to learn a new technique, above anything else, she loved the history, not just of the Uchiha, but of the world in general. After all, she had aspirations to become Hokage one day like her father, and if anything, she would always want to know about everything and anything. It's what led her to spend a lot of her time in the library studying. However, there was one thing that she found hard to figure out, and that was information about the Uchiha clan. Now granted, they had learned stories about their grandmother and grandfather in Fugaku and Mikoto, but it was always vague to some extent. There was gaps within the Uchiha clan's information, and then ultimately there was trying to figure out just what on earth had happened to the Uchiha clan. The children were always under the assumption that the clan had dwindled in size from the times that they were born, and that in all likelihood they were a clan from a much more ancient time period. Of course, even still, there was also the matter of the fact that there was the issue of the Fourth Great Ninja War, a war in which they had heard the names of those responsible. Of course, they had learned of Madara Uchiha, but not of his full story as well, and little was known about his accomplice. At least for the Hidden Leaf, they tried to keep as much of that information as hidden as possible. But even still, Sarada would spend their time wanting to learn more about her clan, more about anything and everything that she could. As she sat one day in the library, looking over a book in particular about the Sharingan, she was only left with more questions than answers. She wished she could have learned more about the Uchiha, but for the most part they were all gone. The only two left was her mother, her uncle. Well, not if you don't include her and her siblings. But even still, what was it about the Uchiha clan? What made them so different from everyone else? And what was their history? Just why on earth had it been kept a secret? All the same, Sarada would leave the library, unsatisfied with her answers, but still not deterred. Eventually, she would head home, meeting with Boruto and Jiraiya, as Boruto was looking to get preparations made for dinner. And before long, the three children were eating with each other once again. They made small talk about how their day was, Jiraiya explaining that the daycare was going alright and pretty well, and that Aunt Sakura was nice to be around. Boruto talked about how he and Momo had another sparring match, and he had actually managed to push her quite a bit until she activated the Byakugan, and then, well, the fight was pretty much over. He had also heard that old man Kakashi was going on vacation. Apparently he was going with his old friends, that being in Guy Sensei, Asuma Sensei, and they were going to be accompanied by his daughter, Mirai Sarutobi, who would also be joining them. Of course, that would mean that Principal Anko was going to be going along as well, along with Asuma's wife Kurenai. So, in all likelihood, the vice principal was going to have to take over for the school for a bit, and all the students thought that this was going to be a time to cut loose, although Sarada warned that Boruto should avoid trying to get in any more trouble. Of course, not that Boruto ever did anything that was too bad. He didn't have the same wild streak as his father, although he was always down to pull off a good prank or two. Now, granted, Principal Anko was probably the most chill that the school had ever had as a principal, but still, there was Vice Principal, and, well, He didn't really care for the Uzumaki antics all too much, whether it be his father or his son. And Iruka, well, we all know how Iruka tended to be with the more troublesome students. Eventually, though, the conversation would turn to Sarada, asking what she had been up to. Sarada explained that she had wanted to learn more about the Uchiha clan, but she was hitting a roadblock. Every time she tried to figure out more information, it was like it had been taken out. Like there was something that was being hidden from them. Of course, Sarada didn't let this get her down though. She knew that she could figure it out with enough time. And besides, their father was the Hokage. If anyone could get them the information that they needed about their own family, it would be him. Boruto remarked that he hoped Mom and Uncle Itachi were going to be back soon, since he really wanted to try to get down the Shuriken clone jutsu. After all, it was something that he had been working on for a while now, although he just couldn't quite get it right. At the same time though, Sarada wondered when her mother and uncle were going to be coming back as well, since that was a lot more that she wanted to learn from them. Of course, the young children would eat and clean up their mess before eventually settling in for the night. Naruto would make it home not before long to find that a plate for dinner had already been made for him and was waiting in the refrigerator, with a little note. This warmed his heart, and it also affirmed with him that he really had to try to do a bit better as a father. Thankfully enough, his children never really held it against him for being Hokage, although at the same time he knew that it wasn't easy for any of them. Granted, they had their issues not too long ago, since Boruto wasn't really too fond of his father never being home, but with help from both Satomi and Naruto, the children were able to view this as a way of helping the village in a sense, doing what was good for the good of others. Of course, this didn't mean that all of the children were happy with this. Even Sarada and Jiraiya would be a bit saddened whenever their father wasn't home, but they knew that the only thing they could do was rely on each other and help each other out. As such, that's why the children had learned to make their own dinners. That's why they had learned to work and stick together, even when they didn't have a parent around. They were maturing before their very eyes. And Naruto, noticing this, he knew that he would need to do something for them in some way. Maybe a family vacation. I mean, after all, they still had some time. The winter festival wasn't going to be too far away, in less than a month or so. And since Satomi was going to be home, maybe they could all go together. They hadn't gone to the festival as a full family in a while now. Not that they ever missed it, of course. The winter festival being a special occasion for both Naruto and Satomi, since it was at the winter festival where they first met, all those years ago. But even still, he knew he had to do something for them, and he'd figure something out. As the next day arrived, Sarada was making her way to the Hokage's office to drop off Naruto's lunch. That was until she heard a conversation going about from her father's office. It was between Naruto and Shikamaru, along with Kakashi. The three of them were discussing the information that they had gotten from Satomi and Itachi, about how they had encountered another being with the Sharingan. Of course, this left them very concerned, because this being wasn't related to them, and it meant that it had to be the work of Orochimaru. Kakashi would sigh for a moment. There were times when they wondered if Itachi allowing for Orochimaru to live was the best decision. Of course, he played a crucial effort during the events of the war, and that couldn't be understated. And ever since the treaty had been made, along with special monetization, Orochimaru had been on his best behavior. But even still, they could never be quite sure with him. It was as if there was always something. Even still, Naruto knew that he couldn't allow the situation to go on any further without checking in himself, and as such, he was going to personally go along. Shikamaru and Kakashi would agree to look after things while he was away, and as such, Naruto would prepare to set out to rendezvous with Satomi as well as Itachi. As he was leaving, Sarada would decide to tag along and bring the lunch that she had made for her father. In doing so, she would head out of the village not too long after Naruto. Naruto moving not too fast but not too slow either. He almost didn't even recognize that his daughter had actually been following him. Before long, he would have eventually have been close to the rendezvous point. However, he stopped when the chakra signature finally registered with him. Sarada? Oh, Dad! Sarada, what are you doing? Why are you following me? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to bring you lunch, but you had already left, and I hoped that you hadn't gotten too far away, so I wanted to bring the lunch for you. Oh, I see. Thank you. Naruto would go and take the lunchbox from her. He was preparing to make a shadow clone to help escort her back to the village, but Sarada would look at him nervously. Naruto could tell that look in his daughter's eyes, so he asked, Is there something you need, sweetie? Oh, you're going to meet with Uncle Itachi and Mom, right? Yeah, I am. Do you think it's okay if I tag along? I don't know. I don't think this is something that you should be involved in. Not that I don't want you to come, Sarya. It's just, you don't know what type of dangers might happen. I know, but, I mean, if I'm with you guys, it's probably the safest place I could be, right? And if things really do get dire, I can always go back to the village myself. Naruto thought this over for a moment. On the one hand, Naruto knew that it might be unwise to take her along, and knowing how Satomi felt about the children, if Naruto did something that even remotely might put them in danger, he'd have hell to pay for it. But at the same time, his precious baby girl just wanted to tag along with the family, and I mean, she had a point. They were probably the 3 strongest shinobi on the planet. I mean, if she couldn't be safe with them, then who could she be safe with? Mulling it over, Naruto decided he would bring her along, and the two would continue on in their journey. However, Naruto would stop her immediately, as he could sense a few other chakra signatures were fast approaching. Sarada, stop and stay right where you are. Don't move. Sarada would stop immediately at the words of her father. The tone in his voice had changed dramatically, and she knew what this meant. There were a lot of things that can make Naruto very serious, but when his children's life could potentially be in harm's way, that was when another side of him came out. A side that Naruto honestly didn't try to show all that much. It was the side of someone you didn't want to cross. From out of nowhere, 5 chakra blades would come rushing forward at them. Naruto would instantly transform into KCM2. Multiple Kurama arms would appear in every direction, stopping every blade. So, you were able to sense our attack. I could feel the malice. It wasn't all that difficult. Now who are you? We are the will of our master. And you, the voices would say, moving towards Sarya, you bear the power. You may be the one. I don't think so. Naruto would effortlessly push them all back. He and Kurama were ready for battle. And to even insinuate that they would come after Sarada in any way was a big mistake. The Shin Uchihas would all try to attack Naruto once again. However, he would deflect their attacks effortlessly. Before long, they would have no choice but to evacuate once again, seeing that they did not have the power yet to match him. As such, they would disappear along with their master, a being that hid in the shadows, a tiny amalgamation with a large singular eye that glowed of the Sharingan. With that, Naruto and Satomi would eventually reconvene, with Sarada close behind. As they eventually arrived at the rendezvous point, Satomi and Itachi would be very shocked to see young Sarada among them. Of course, Satomi would look to Naruto, Naruto turning to his wife as she had a smile on her face. And for Naruto, there was a sinking feeling. Naruto, dear. Yes, Satomi? Can you answer me this? Why did you bring our daughter here? Hold up, come on, she just wanted to tag along, and I didn't really think anything of it. Oh no. As the couple were off talking in the distance, Itachi would sit, smiling to himself as he sat next to a young Sarada. Hi, Uncle Itachi. Sarada, it's good to see you. Although I am surprised that your father would bring you along, that probably wasn't the wisest decision. But still, I am glad to hear you once more. How are you? Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. And your brothers? They're fine. They're just back in the village is all. Ah, I see. I hear that you're going to be graduating this year. Oh, I am. Thank you. I know that you'll do fine as a shinobi. There will be many things in this world for you to see, many obstacles for you to overcome. But I believe that you truly have the heart to achieve anything that you set your mind to. Sarada would become a bit bashful at the compliment. As such, she would finally want to ask what she had come here for in the first place. Sarada would look to Itachi and ask about the Uchiha family, about what happened to them. Of course, she would explain the research she had been trying to do on her own for a while, but she hadn't been able to figure anything out. And if anyone knew anything, she figured that Mom or Itachi would have the answers. Itachi looked at her solemnly. This was a question that he didn't think he'd be asked, and even more so, a question he wasn't sure if he wanted to answer. We all know the fate of the Uchiha. It is a sad and dark history. Even more so, to see the brightness on her face, to see the shine in her eyes. Itachi couldn't take that away from her. He wanted his nieces and nephews to be different. He wanted them to have a chance to live a life better than the one he and his sister did. Itachi was going to think of an answer when both Naruto and Satomi would come back from their lovers' quarrel. While Satomi wasn't too happy about the idea of Sarada being here, she wasn't going to dismiss her daughter. Sarada would look to her mother, a bit hesitant, wondering if she was going to be mad. However, Satomi would kneel beside her, pulling her into a hug. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to see you too, Mother. And please know that I love you, all of you, very much. And I don't want any of you to get hurt. I know, Mom. And don't worry, it's not Dad's fault. I convinced him to let me go. Oh no, honey, I don't blame you in the slightest. You see, your father's the adult here, and he's the Hokage. So he really does need to start making better decisions. Isn't that right, dear? Yes, ma'am. Anyway, I was on a mission with your uncle, and we needed your father's assistance. Although now that you're here, I wouldn't say that this complicates things too much. As long as you promise to stay close, then everything's going to be just fine. I promise. And with that, the four family group would make their way outside of the rendezvous, as they were going to head to their next destination. However, just as they were preparing to leave, from out of nowhere, a mysterious man dressed in black, with red clouds adorning his clothing, along with many more of the young Uchihas, would set out to make their assault. And they already had a target in mind. The family would find themselves under assault as the Shin Uchiha clones would arrive once more. Naruto and Satomi would instantly go into battle mode, while Sarada would stand behind Itachi. As Itachi guarded her, his EMS now ablaze. The three adults would look to fight off the swarm of Shin Uchihas, as the one in black would watch from a distance. However, he would dodge an attack of Black Flame, the Amaterasu, as it seemed as though his position had been smoked out. As he stood before them, Naruto, Satomi, and Itachi will look at him angrily. "Who are you?" Naruto would ask. "Wouldn't you like to know, 7th Hokage? I am the true descendant of the one of whom which you and your wretched wife killed in the last great war. Madara had no sons," Itachi would remark. "In blood, no, but in spirit, yes. I am the amalgamation of Lord Madara's will, and I have foreseen great calamity that will befall this planet." "A great calamity?" Naruto would ask. "Yes, a great calamity. And it comes from you." He pointed towards the group. "Your family will be the cause of it all. But I am going to right that wrong, and I will do so by taking your life." This being would have multiple Sharingans, all implanted on his skull, along with the ones in his eyes, one of which was all black, but they were all Mangekyo all the same. Both Naruto and Satomi would attempt to take him down. While he could not overmatch them in power right from the beginning, he had an ability to control metal, using it at will. He was able to match them in terms of speed and power, his various Mangekyo Sharingan proving to be his aid. As Itachi was battling against the various Shins that attacked from every direction, one of which that looked as though it were about to decapitate him, Sarada would jump using her kunai to block the attack before kicking him away at once. Of course, Itachi didn't need the help, but at the same time, he had faith in Sarada's abilities to take care of the foe. As the niece and uncle duo would stand back to back with one another, Itachi would tell Sarada to stand on guard and that he would protect her. The family unit fought together as one, against Shin and against his sons. Before long, though, Shin had seen what he wanted, and as such, he would give the command to his tiny creature. It looked as though both Naruto and Satomi had taken down the original Shin, as they held both kunais to his throat, warning him to stand down or to face the consequences. Sarada would be a bit out of breath. After all, it wasn't like she was able to do that much. But against the weaker Shin clones, she was able to do something. As she looked towards her family, wondering just who this new guy was and where he had gotten these Sharingans, the little creature would appear on her shoulder. Itachi would turn back to Sarada immediately, looking to reach her just in time before it was too late. However, Sarada, all of the clones, and their mastermind would seemingly disappear. As the three were left standing there, both Naruto and Satomi looked at one another, both in absolute shock as to what had happened. Itachi himself were also seething with rage. Satomi would look to Naruto, and Naruto looked back to his wife. And as she did, her Sharingan was blazing with its own Mangekyo. Naruto, where is my daughter?